you expect to ever be home for such a kind of period of time again when you left last time?
It was always my home, so I was always going to spend time, but it's, since going away to university, it had been like, a couple months at a time tops for like a summer or something like that. And that's kind of what we gotten used to. So to come back and like move home after starting that independent momentum away from home, and then come back and figure like you're 12 again and like asking my parents, can I use the car? It's like, it's been a total mind trip. But it's very unexpected, and wasn't planning on having this like proper chunk of time at home anytime soon. But like I said, it's just kind of the way that it turned out, and very, very grateful to be here now.
Have you noticed it impact your songwriting in any way? Being close to those people again that you're so kind of connected to? Because family connection is different to friends. Like even if you're close with people in Liverpool, it's a different thing.
Yeah, I don't know if it's like as much the interaction with people that has affected my kind of songwriting lately being home, but more just like the drastic change in environment going from Liverpool back here, and kind of like I was touching upon, like that juxtaposition of that building your own kind of slightly independent life away from your childhood home, and then coming home and being in your old bed and just having those two worlds exist simultaneously. And just that I think that being back in this, what I'm trying to say is being back in this kind of home environment is definitely having an effect on my songwriting, and especially being able to kind of pivot from Liverpool. I've spent the last 3 years. It's like a total fresh take on this place that I thought I knew so well, and it's able to just see it in a different way.
That's interesting. Is that because when you go to Liverpool, and you're kind of starting fresh and you're meeting all these new people, if you change slightly as a person or you act differently when you're over there, when you come back home, do you still feel like you're kind of in the Liverpool version of yourself for a bit before you kind of...
I don't know if it's how much I feel myself changing, but I definitely feel affected by my environment, and the environments are very different. So to whatever extent that affects how I act, maybe that's on a subconscious level, but it's definitely, you can feel your worldview slightly shift when you make such a they're just very different places. I think they both affect me in a positive way. Yeah, I didn't mean to, I don't know if I painted it in a negative light, being home after all this time. Like they're both very, they have positive effects on me, but they're so different. So it is that full trip when you're making that change.
That's interesting. Like, do they bring out different sides of you? Because you're saying they both impact you in a positive way, but I'm intrigued by how that positive influence is different for each one, when you're sitting in such different places.
Like, I'll just think about it, like musically, I think, like both places have such rich musical cultures and history, like, Northern England and Northern Soul, England in general, and then like Hawaiian music culture is very strong here too, and it's a very, very different different take on music, but it's like equally as deep. And so I think just from the musical aspect, being surrounded by those or in that atmosphere affects me musically. And whether it's like walking around Liverpool listening to like Revolver or like being here and learn how to play the Hawaiian steel guitar, I think those elements bring out different things on like how I'm feeling about music and what I want to write about, and the sounds, like the sonic palette I would use when doing something like that. So it's like, I think I have fun thinking about like those kind of like super subtle ways. I think those places influence me musically, and that's like, they're just really cool worlds to dive into when you're there or when I'm here, kind of vibe.
It's funny that you brought up like Revolver there. You mentioned Revolver and then spoke about the kind of sonic palette. Because was Revolver one of the albums that you recreated as a kid or as a teenager?
Yeah. Wow. Thank you for knowing that. In high school, we had to do a senior project, and it was kind of open-ended, and I just chatted my teachers into letting me do some sort of what do we even call it? I came up with a super formal name for the project. It was like a study of analog tape emulation using digital recording software, and like an in-depth study of re-recording my favorite songs off of Rubber Soul and Revolver. I called a revolving soul. but the whole approach is like re-record those records using obviously like, you know, digital recording software, but embracing an analog recording style. So like no overdubs, like no punching in, like, although, you know, you could do that on a real tape machine, but just, yeah, it kind of set myself back a bit and learn the parts by ear. So that was a crazy project for me.
Learn the parts by ear. That's heavy going.
I was just trying to like give myself a different criteria to like approach this particular recording project, and it was a blast for me because those are my favorite records, and you just, you know, have to listen a lot.
How old are you at this point?
I was 17.
17. Where are you at as a producer and a songwriter at that point in your life then?
I'd put out a record with my childhood band here.
OCDC?
Yeah, OCDC. Wow, man. Thank you for doing the research. That's crazy. Yeah, OCDC was our take on ACDC and obsessive compulsive disorder. So OCDC. There we go.
That album's still out.
It's still out. Yeah, it's up on Spotify. It's a favorite of, you know, my Kauai homies here. We you know, we'll throw back, put it on, blast them out.
When was the last time you heard it?
I think an auntie of mine actually put on some tunes from it the other day, and it was wild because I was listening through and actually being like, I wonder if I could ever like put a new spin on any of these and reproduce them in a totally new way. So that might happen at some point.
It's funny how young you sound on it.
I know, yeah. I mean, listening back, it's like, it's so angsty. I don't know what was going on. I was listening to a lot of Modest Mouse probably, and I was just going ham. Yeah, that was my first like kind of dive into well, yeah, that was like, yeah, really having fun with recording because I'd always messed around with it. But this was our friend, our engineer mate, Andrew Vastola, came over, and he like basically set up a studio in our room, and we just like dug in for a few months and just, I don't know, I didn't know you could take time on that kind of thing and have fun and try out, you know, dig into that sonic palette. So that was a big thing for me.
Did you get the taste? Was that kind of what started to drive you a little bit in the years following? Did you get the taste from that? Especially
for like, yeah, writing my own tunes and writing with other people and like really digging into the recording process. That was the first time I'd, you know, done it totally at our own pace kind of thing, you know.
Did you demo those songs before you recorded them for the record?
Yeah. I'd so yeah, and my more like guerrilla recording setup, which I'm actually back to now. But yeah, I would just like demo them as best as I could, and then we'd learn the parts and record them properly, and just kind of, yeah, early days of honing in on, you know, my creative routine with that.
Now when you're working on songs, at what point does an idea become a demo? You know, at what point does it stop just being like a melody or a kind of riff, and at what point do you classify it and put the demo stamp on it?
I think I'd have to attempt recording it in some sense and have it be, you know, more than a voice memo for me. So yeah, like I'll, you know, sit down, and that's when you kind of first start to create the, like, you know, what texture the song's gonna have, like what Beatles record am I gonna choose to be the sonic palette inspiration for this one. No, yeah, it'll be like, yeah, blasting out like a verse and a chorus with me like mumbling over it, crank it out in Logic real quick to have a bounce to listen to, and then to write on top of. But definitely it would be a demo once the kind of sonic palette has been kind of established. So guitar sounds, drum sound, and is it going to be a super dry tune, or is it going to be this like washy kind of, I don't know. Yeah, those are kind of things I have to figure out before I start writing words. But so it's a demo once it has like a sonic identity more than just on my voice memo, if that makes any sense.
Yeah, it almost sounds like it's a demo as well once you've answered some questions. Like you're saying that you're asking yourself these questions about the soundscape once you've figured out the answers to that. Yeah. Exactly.
Yeah, like what's its atmosphere going to be in the end, like the earliest stage of it having its own original identity.
What do you find is often the spark? Is the spark often the same element, the thing that kind of kickstarts a song off when an idea going?
Yeah, it's weird. I mean, it's happened always in the past, but primarily it starts with it's definitely, yeah, like a more a melodic thing. It's rarely ever a lyric first for me, so it'll definitely be a guitar sound that really inspires me, or a drum groove. Yeah, it's definitely coming from that side of it. That kind of has to like excite me enough to try and write words to it.
Can you come up with melodic ideas away from an instrument, or do you have to kind of be jamming on something to get to them?
I can brainstorm away from an instrument and keep the ideas down. Yeah.
It's funny as well. I was listening to, you posted some of the kind of voice memos that you had for Cruella de Vil.
Yeah.
And you have that drum beat there right away from the off. Like you pretty much have the whole rhythm down.
I know. Was it the one where I was beatboxing on it?
Yeah.
Yeah. I know, it's wild. And surprisingly, like enough that the drum beat was a thing which kind of held it back for a while because it hadn't translated from my beatbox demo to a live kit the first time round very well. So it took me a minute to hone in on exactly how that beatbox would evolve. But yeah, there you go. That's a prime example of just having some weird grounding elements from day one, whether it's a beatbox or like a whistle melody or something.
As soon as you have that melody, does it kind of spark all these different things? Like, does the drum beat come into your head as soon as you have it? Do you know where everything's kind of going to go?
Yeah. I mean, with that tune, for instance, like I feel like it's kind of a driving groove that doesn't stop the whole time. So that then gives you the kind of, it's going to be kind of like a walking tune, like you're walking down the street kind of thing. And then that'll obviously spark imagery and ideas. And then, is it sunny out? Like, well, what kind of guitar tone are we going to do? I feel like it does all flow together and feed into each other and ignite certain ideas, whether it's lyrical or more just melodic and instrumental.
Can you ever put ideas that you've developed like kind of separately that have just come to you together, or does everything that kind of follows from the initial idea have to be a reaction off of it?
Yeah, for sure. For a little while, I wasn't in the habit of that. I don't know why. If I thought like it had to all be pure from the same idea or any of that, but I think I kind of quickly got over that and realized that it's you got to be open to everything in this creative process. So yeah, anything can work.
You still have the demo shed?
Yeah, I have. It's been like, I put it up a while ago, and I don't know if the link is still available, but I put tunes on there. I think they're still up there. I gotta recheck on that one. The demo shed, I'm trying to think, how did that one come about? I had a bunch of like ideas. That's what it was. I was kind of at a loss of what idea to put the energy into next to kind of get it across the finish line. And then I was talking to my mom, and she had the idea of like, she's like, well, just like, put it public and get, people who dig your music, like ask them what resonates with them, and that just never occurred to me as to kind of open up that process, because it was always very I decide everything myself and try and but like I'm like, no, it doesn't got to be that precious that way. Like, yeah, I mean, I'm not always going to be the one listening to music, so what resonates with anybody else? And it was really, really cool to see what ones stood out to people, because like sometimes it was like spot on, like, yeah, that's my favorite, or sometimes it was like I would have never put any more energy into that idea just because I kind of wrote it off too soon, but it clicked with somebody. So that, I don't know, that helped me a lot, just being a little more gentle with my ideas and realizing or just give certain ones a chance more,
Were any songs in that have come out since?
Yeah, I think Cruella de Vil was in there a while ago. I think this tune Come Down was on there. This one, Like I Don't Mind. Another one, High School Steady. Yeah, there's
a lot of the EP.
Yeah. Yeah, right. It's the whole EP. There you go. I know. That'd be a fun thing. That'd be a fun project at some point to like release an EP of demos. I don't know. Mix them to a Spotify standard, but then put them out in their original state.
When was the last time you heard those demos?
Well, some of them have evolved like on top of those original recordings and have then been like mixed really well, and the demos have kind of stayed, and then some of them I've totally re-recorded. I've some of them haven't. It's been a while, but some of them I've heard more recently. Yeah, it's always trippy listening back to a song which you spend a lot of time with and get to a certain place, and then you listen to a version of it when it had its same identity, but it was like totally different, and it's this weird alternate universe of the direction a song could have gone. You know.
Do you ever develop songs in certain directions and then kind of walk back and try a different path?
For sure. Yeah, that's definitely what happened with Cruella de Vil. Is I tried it in a certain way, and like I said, like it was something about the drum beat that didn't nail it, so I re-recorded everything and used this crazy drum machine sound, and then gave it a whole other, like kicked in a whole other direction. So yeah, for sure.
So the parts were still the same, you just re-recorded them though?
A lot of the parts stayed the same. Some of them I changed, and then whole tempo of the tune, groove of the tune, and yeah, that's like it's a trippy thing, and that I guess that doesn't happen a lot because I get quite attached to things, and then it's obviously hard to have fresh ears and reimagine how they could sound, but it was cool for that to have been a successful attempt to reimagine a tune, because it isn't always.
It's interesting how you can change, just a couple of those elements and suddenly it places everything else in a different context. It's like just putting in the right pieces of the puzzle and it all just clicks. Absolutely.
And yeah, you never know what is gonna act as that puzzle piece, but for that tune, it was literally just the drum sound, the groove. It was weird.
Cruella de Vil's an interesting one as well, lyrically. You obviously kind of got this femme fatale, but then you also have, it's one of your songs that I've noticed that you quite often like to reference things, like kind of cultural reference points. You got Cruella de Vil, you got FIFA. And is the Beatles reference, I'm the Fool on the Hill? There's one of them in there too?
I think that's all of them. Yeah.
Is that like a conscious thing you put in, like almost like dropping in Easter eggs, or does that just come out in the flow of consciousness when you're writing?
I mean, I enjoy I love it when other people reference I think the people who I enjoy listening to their references, they do it in this kind of Easter egg kind of sense, whether it's in music or in movies or literature. Like I think it's like such a cool tool to be able to play with, or whether you're like referencing, it's like a song within a song. It's that like intertextuality of like referencing art within art, which I think is like, you can have a blast with that, and you have a whole world of beautiful art to pull from and like connect in whatever way you can, So yeah, I thought like there's that in almost, I think, every single one of my tunes. There's some reference to some obscure something, at least a few. But dude, you nailed it on that one. You picked him up. Thank you for listening so closely.
It carries into the music videos too. Not necessarily the same references, but you're still, you're referencing things visually too.
Absolutely, that's what I mean. That's like what's so fun about it is like, why not nod to certain things, pay homage to one, like have a spin something else in a different way. I don't know. I think when I realized you could do that and there are no rules with how you want to tie things together, it like totally opened up a lyrical world for me.
It's interesting to kind of think about it in the context, of moving to Liverpool, because I imagine when you move 7,000 miles away, suddenly you have all these new kind of fresh cultural reference points that you didn't have previously. Does that suddenly open up kind of a world of inspiration in that sense? So you're constantly kind of picking out things that you might want to work into a song, and it's got a nice kind of sound to it?
Oh, absolutely. And just diving into the English language as you all speak it, and like that has its own quirks and idiosyncrasies that like doesn't really translate into other languages, as all languages have like stuff that's unique to each other. But it's cool to be in that part of the world and within that like lexicon and context, and like to have that at your as a tool as well to play with. So yeah, there are no limits, and being in Liverpool definitely was a blast for me in that sense of just learning new words for things and referencing like sandwich shops and whatnot.
Do you get picked up on it when you go home? Like if you go back to Hawaii and you've kind of picked up some words that have gone into your dialogue, do you get cut out on it?
Yeah, it's hilarious. Like I'm calling people mate and oh god, all sorts. Yeah, and I'm just that weird kid now who like has like some weird like Scouse slang popping out at the wrong times, but it's all good. The right times. And then the other way around too. I have all my mates in Liverpool like saying like slang from here on Kauai, and it just cracks me up. I'm in this like weird alternate universe of like Scouse Hawaiian slang. Like I don't know what's going on.
What's some good Hawaiian slang?
Oh God, I mean anything goes. Like one thing we say is charge large, and that's just like a word that means like, yeah, it's kind of self-explanatory. You go for it, like charge large. But like then I'll hear my mates talking, they're like, yeah, charge, mate, charge large. I'm like, what? All kinds. Yeah.
I saw a photo of you at a show as well with a bottle of Buckfast.
Oh yeah,
which is a Scottish delicacy. How'd you get your hands on that?
that happened. Got my first bottle of Buckfast during Freshers Week, so that was straight off the bat, mate. And what an eye-opening experience that was. My mate from Sheffield just showed up, and he had like this big bottle of Buckfast, and he's like, "Try this." I'm like, "What the fuck?" But no, it's beautiful. It'll sort you out.
Yeah, it puts the fire in your chest.
Absolutely. Wakes you up. Goddamn.
You know, when you first kind of moved to Liverpool, or even maybe when you come back to Hawaii and you kind of get that sense of transition as you move back into another place, are you able to write from that energy and kind of tap into that chaotic transition state?
100%, yeah. In the example of having come back from Liverpool to Kauai this time, like upon that initial lockdown in mid-March, that was like such a shocker because it was like, you know, it was like one weekend wash your hands and the next like, you're coming home, you're on the next plane. I was like, what? So that was like the most abrupt transition I'd had yet. And I came home and it's like I wrote this tune like the first couple days back, and that's this one high school steady that's going to be on the new EP. So that definitely captured that total culture shock transition in that initial week.
That's interesting, because when I heard that song, there are parts of it that feel a little bit more full than you sometimes go for in a mix. There's a lot going on. Is that coming from that place? Is that what's feeling that? Yeah, and it's just being like a bit chaotic and nonstop. Yeah, it's just all a wash. So yeah, it was cool to I think some of that was conscious and some of it probably subconscious, just how it translated sonically. Is it weird to kind of have that chaotic emotion when you're in Hawaii, which we kind of have this impression of being such a chill place? Yeah, I mean, it's definitely I think you'll stress out wherever you are, no matter how chill it is. Especially in COVID time. Right? No, it's definitely, it is a laid back environment here. A little too much for the likes of me sometimes, which is why I got to get over Liverpool and shake it up a bit. Just because I think that's just how I'm wired a little bit. I think if I was maybe more of an avid surfer, I would be a little more content to just, do that. But as it turns out, I'm not a great surfer, so I gotta find my inspiration and excitement in other ways, in music. You were going to be moving to London as well, right? I imagine that's the complete antithesis of Hawaii. That's like kind of chaos times 100. Oh my God, yeah. I mean, that's what I mean. Like Liverpool was a big city for me. Like walking around, I was like, whoa, these like buildings, and then like take a train out of London and your mind's blown. But yeah, that was the plan. Like after graduating over the summer, moved down to London in September, and it's still the plan when the time's right. I'm going to get back over and make the move. I still all have my whole flat and trash bags in my mate's other flat in Liverpool, so I have to make the trek down and move in. But that's the plan. I love London. What were you studying? Oh, I was studying music, just songwriting and production and composition at LIPA. Does that change your kind of perception of your own songwriting voice when you kind of unpack it in that quite theoretical way and practical way? Yeah, I mean, it's always a trip, like studying your passion, but I think it was a treat and one I was grateful for, to be able to take a whole degree on like writing tunes. Like I just felt like that's a opportunity. Not everyone who enjoys writing tunes can like afford to take like 3 years and then go talk about writing songs. So like I was very grateful for that, and it totally helped me to unpack it in a different way, and above all just be in that environment of like a lot of young people really passionate about creating music and
that inspired me above all else.
Yeah, feed off that drive and energy.
Yeah, for sure. And that's definitely what I was craving after high school on Kauai, was just to have a little change of scenery and meet some more people who were, into tunes.
Did you know anyone else in high school who had the same kind of drive that you do?
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. Got a lot of there's a load of creative people here on Kauai, and I was so lucky to have grown up with like mates who were very passionate about their own creative avenues, and that was very inspiring to be around, and we all were able to kind of collaborate on stuff growing up. And even now, with it being such a small little community here, like, you know what everyone's got going on, and you can help each other out for stuff and work on things together. So that definitely like drove me through my kind of childhood here and high school and moving forward. But definitely then there just came a point post high school where we're all moving away and trying different stuff out, and it seemed like staying on Kauai wouldn't be the most productive next step in my own musical endeavor. So
what was like the access to like equipment like when you went to Liverpool, like from like the university? Did you get access to like studios and stuff and different equipment that you wouldn't have had otherwise?
Yeah. There's they have great studios up there, and I lived with my mate who's studying sound technology, so he was able to get us into a lot of the studios, and we were able to just mess around. And it was great.
How did that studio compare to Sheldon Gomberg's, who you worked with on an album?
That's amazing. So Sheldon's my godfather, actually, and he and my dad used to be in a band when they were living in LA, a jazz trio. So they go way back. And my mom was recording a jazz record with her father at Sheldon's studio, which is a studio that he built in the house. I was actually born in Silver Lake in that house, and he bought it from us and turned it into a studio. So when I got the chance to go over and like record some tunes, it was like, the full circle, like coming home to the house I was born in, and I got to record these tunes, when I was 16, 17. Yeah, that's like a world-class studio he's made there, and it's like, I love Sheldon, and we just had a beautiful time just making tunes for a week.
Was this after the Beatles project?
Yeah, this was it was going on at the same time. Yeah, that was in my senior year of high school.
That's crazy. You have this kind of the project on one hand where you're doing it all yourself and kind of DIY, completely unpacking everything, and on the other you're working in like a world-class studio with a professional producer. That's how I like it. This is the more the better, honestly. And that just helps me get into that kind of just creative flow. It doesn't matter if it's trying to decipher the twin lead on "And Your Bird Can Sing," or trying to write my own take on that. Are the lessons you learn from each quite different?
Yeah, for sure. But they definitely feed into each other. I actually directly, in the sense that like in learning these parts that the Beatles record on those records and realizing the technology they had available to them at the time, like I think what it brought out in their playing was like this like live, raw, like gotta kind of perform kind of vibe to those recordings. So realizing you don't have endless overdubs and endless punch-ins, so like that definitely affects your playing. And thankfully that affected mine in like a positive way, because it can definitely affect it in the way in which you clam up, nothing flows, but which has also happened. But it's so much nicer just to kind of let go and enjoy that excitement and let it push you to that good boundary of recording. So that was really cool for me, realizing that's what Paul and John were doing, and then to be able to go into my own little studio experience and try and put myself in their shoes and go into a guitar solo with that kind of mindset.
Do you ever still do that now? Will you like unpack music that you love and try and work it out a little bit?
Yeah. Oh, for sure. That's still doing it with that record. Like, God.
So it makes them so great. I
know. You just keep getting into them. Like, I'm a mad Beatles freak. But yeah, I think unpacking any tune or any musical moment that makes you feel something is always a good thing to do. So I I've definitely had times where I get out of the habit of it, but I'll always be listening to music. But then it's like, okay, what's actually going on? Like, I don't know. It's always a fun thing to do.
Does that, you kind of mentioned that, you'll get into music that makes you feel something. Does it change the way you think about how it makes you feel when you kind of unpack it in that way?
No, I don't think it like detracts from the initial reaction of it. If anything, it just gives you a greater knowledge upon how to use it in my own music, That's how I could incorporate that feeling and put my own spin on it, if I can really just understand how, they set up that musical moment and like what the context of it was and how they did it. I don't know. Yeah. I don't know. It's a cool thing, and I think it affects my songwriting definitely positively.
Do you remember the first time that happened, where you kind of felt this desire to unpack the kind of process and what was actually going on, like from a piece of music that you love?
Yeah, I mean, and it wasn't much more than just figuring out a guitar part, but that for me was like a first, which it was on this Modest Mouse tune, Dashboard.
Great song.
Yeah, this record Johnny Marr like recorded with them. And that's how I actually got turned on to Johnny Marr, was through that record. So I was like the biggest Modest Mouse freak growing up. And like there's just so many good guitar parts. And it was that rhythm part that a friend asked me to learn and teach him. And then I ended up like having to sit down and try and figure it out. And yeah, it was a slightly like deeper rhythm part than I'd tried to accomplish before. And it's just like so driving. And like when I could like listen to it, figure out like in what position they were playing on the guitar, and then play and teach to my mate, like that was like, wow, like it sounds like the record. and so that was a moment of like being like, wow, I can play it and it can give me that same feeling. Like how can I like write something off of that kind of thing,
to make it feel a little bit more in reach, like something, this kind of mystical thing you've realized that you can get to it.
Yeah, it's just like mystical thing you have to like, this feeling you can only achieve by putting your headphones on and listen like that intro on repeat, and then like you learn it and you're like, wow, I can just play it forever and can be equally as stoked. I was like, I think 9 or 10 when that happened, so that was like,
that's young.
I oh my god, I love Modest Mouse.
It's funny, we kind of touched on it a few moments back when we were speaking about working with Sheldon. Because you said your mother was over there working on a record too.
Yeah. She was, yeah, go ahead.
You're kind of musical family. Like, is everyone in your family kind of involved in a creative musical project in some way?
Yeah, kind of. It's kind of just turned out that way. And, well, I mean, I think it was that way long before I ever was around. But my mom and dad are both musicians and passionate about music. And we have an ukulele shop on the North Shore of Kauai here called Honolulu Strings that I used to work at growing up, and we sell records. We put in like a stage in the corner, so that was definitely like, that was our family musical hub, and where me and all my mates would go and put on nights and
nice
play with my band OCDC. That was our home turf. Then my mom's dad and mom are also both musicians. My grandma's in this like 60s rock band called Ace of Cups, one of the first all-girl rock bands in like the San Francisco Haight-Ashbury scene. And then grandpa was he's a mad jazz composer. Played all instruments, especially wind instruments, all his life, and it's just this crazy player.
Open for Duke Ellington, right?
Yeah. when he was my age, when his band opened up for Duke Ellington, I cannot believe that. And then grandma got to open up for Jimi Hendrix, so like they set the bar pretty high. So I don't know what I'm doing.
Were they competing with each other? They were just they had to like one up each other.
Not even. I don't even think they were together at that time. They were just like happen. I think they met after that. But it's just such funny different worlds, like in a very close vicinity to each other in San Francisco.
Your grandma's band only put out their debut record like a few years ago, though, right?
Yeah. So they there was like a 12 or so song compilation of like kind of bootleg live recordings in a rehearsal room. Like someone just held up a mic and a tape machine and recorded some stuff. So there was like a little collection of live demos floating around that was released a while back. And then only recently they kind of got this amazing opportunity to like record these tunes, which I never got the chance to back in the day because, you know, it wasn't really a thing to sign an all-girl rock band. It just didn't happen back then a lot, and it, you know, they end up having kids and all had to, you know, that became the priority, so that kind of fizzled out. But they always stayed in touch and all that, and then at this crazy point in their lives, they've all reconvened with this opportunity to record these songs, and they've just put out their second double vinyl. So like, I mean, they're just unpacking a lifetime's worth of tunes, and it's just like magical fairy tale of, I mean, it's beautiful to like see him doing all this. It's incredible.
Must be a trip.
Oh, such a trip. Yeah, I mean, I'm down there like trying to help my grandma set up her Yeti mic to do a Zoom interview. It's classic.
She was in the documentary You Say You Want a Revolution.
Yeah.
Which you did the music for in the soundtrack. Exactly.
Wow, man, cheers for doing some research. That's awesome. I feel so pro having answering all these questions. Yeah. So how'd that happen? I think the director of it reached out to her because it was put on by the V&A Museum, because she was going to be a part of it. She was part of that whole scene. And then I was in London, and I ended up meeting the director, and then she was talking about soundtracks, and it ended up that I did the original composition for it. That was a blast. I love that. I could do that all day.
Was that like tapping into a part of your creativity that you hadn't explored before?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I think the closest thing I'd done to that was like making some like guitar riffs for some like surf videos growing up. As far as like composing with a visual element in mind. So yeah, no, that I hadn't done much of that before, and then to like sit down with like this like beautiful scene and like think of how to what the musical atmosphere is going to be beneath it. That was amazing, and I'm like such a fan of soundtracks already. So to be in that chair for a moment was incredible.
You were saying that you hadn't composed to like images before, but are images ever at the center of your songwriting now? Like if you think about something like Cruella de Vil, that's kind of such a strong visual component to that song.
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, there's definitely always a little movie playing in my head to every demo. So that's always been there for sure. But to have such an obvious image in mind, that was a new one for me. But absolutely, yeah, there's such a strong visual theme always for I wish it was just like you could just download a little thumb drive to my every little thing, every music video sorted right there, because I've definitely thought it all out.
One day, once Elon Musk gets his chip in your head,
right? Hey, if I can do that, I'll take it. It's all good.
What would the little movie be for No Destination? What's playing in your mind for that?
I mean, we ended up doing a music video for it, which got pretty close, and it was like another kind of like, it's that kind of walking groove, and it's definitely like this building of a tension the whole time. That okay, there's like a super obscure childhood memory of this light parade they used to put on in Lahui, like this town towards the south side of Kauai, and it was just like around Christmas time. My mate and I would go. We had to blow these like conch shells.
Like the seashell horn thing.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So we had to. That was our job. We were like 6, and we were all dressed up. And we had to go blow these horns, and that would commence the parade. But I have this image of like it's all these big albizia trees like strung up with crazy lights, and it's nighttime, and it's like a little chillier. It's in the wintertime, and that for some reason that scene is definitely where the opening verse takes place, which we obviously didn't do that in the music video, but that is the weirdest strong image I have for that first tune.
It's funny to think about that in connection to, or in context of High School Smart, because we spoke about how you wrote that when you just came home, and there's a lot of bits in that song where you talk about coming home. Is it a different thing when you're pulling from a memory that's very present and happening at that time to when you're kind of going quite far back into your past? Is it a different feeling tapping into them when they're that far apart?
Yeah. It's definitely, there's always like a poignant kind of nostalgic aspect to that. Realizing there's this like such this visceral memory, like way back there that you're never gonna get to again. That's just how it is. But like it like lives on through a verse, and I think that's just like that for me taps into just the trip that time is like not this linear thing, and it's just this this eternal flow. I don't know. I don't know how to describe it without getting all astral and shit. But
we can get astral.
I mean, look at the background; it's beautiful. I'm all about it. But no, yeah, definitely. That I think just it's like the fusion of experiences you've had, and then the one you're having right now, and then this like make believe imagery to this verse that's forming in a tune, and it's like it all connects in some weird way.
It's interesting that what you were saying there about this idea of time not being completely linear. Is that something you feel like you're playing with when it comes to the structure of songs? Like this idea of how, like choruses repeat and stuff, and how you can kind of play around with where you bring things back in?
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's such a cool thing and a healthy thing to break down any sort of song structure. And again, just realize there's no rules, and like some tunes just need to be flowing in a totally different way, their own way. It doesn't work with like the AABA kind of vibe. So yeah, cutting yourself some slack and allowing yourself to play around with whatever the song needs is something I try to remember to do for sure.
Which of the songs were written in Liverpool and which were written in Hawaii?
So it's a total half kind of thing. Come Down is definitely a Liverpool tune. It's a little darker, more moody, a little less sunshine.
Was that the first time you'd had cold rain?
Like the first time I'd lived in freezing cold rain. Yeah, that was brutal. Oh my God. I know. And like the sun goes down at 1:30. It's like, what is going on? And like for some reason coming from Kauai, and it's such like a arrogant view on it, but I was like, what, seasonal depression? Like come on, like nah. And then like it hit me. I was like, oh my God. Got myself one of those sad lamps, those like especially LED, and oh my God, just try and soak up the sunshine and get some exercise. But yeah, no, that hit me.
That must hit you even harder when you're coming from Hawaii, where you get sunshine all the time, all year round.
Yeah, no, it was the ultimate shocker, mate. It was wild. But yeah, Come Down was a Liverpool tune. Cruella de Vil I wrote in Liverpool. So Come Down I actually recorded in Liverpool, and then Cruella de Vil I recorded a version in Liverpool, and then when I got back after high school study, I kind of re-recorded it, and it's in the version that it is now. And then No Destination High School Study, those are both written and recorded here.
Can you hear that in the music? Can you very much, when you listen to it, do you get, oh yeah, I can really tell that was a song that kind of came from that period in Liverpool?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I can hear it even to the point where like, yeah, those are the guitar pedals that are over there, and these are the pedals that are here. Like, you can get all nerdy with it. That's just like the room I recorded it in, and the gear. But then the vibe, yeah. I mean, yeah, for sure. High School Studies, like that's the most Kauai tune for me. Just because it was so much about that reaction about coming home. Yeah, so that's explicitly about it, and then sonically just totally captures that for me.
And it's like tapping into a very open wound. Like that's a very kind of raw, fresh thing.
Yeah. And I don't know if I'd go as far as to call it like a wound or anything, but it was definitely raw reaction to like wow, I'm home again, and didn't expect. I thought like you think the next like moving out of London, but like no, you're back in your old bed, which is all good, and like lucky that it worked out that way. But still a trip, How
did the house parties that you played in Liverpool compare to those that you played in Hawaii? The kind of kitchen parties.
Definitely a bit rowdier in Liverpool. I accidentally ran the headstock of my guitar through our little kitchen ceiling at this one. It didn't go all the way through, but it made a proper dent to the ceiling. That was about as rowdy as it got in Liverpool. And then the Kauai is definitely there's less of a ecosystem kind of for that here. So the kind of like those live moments would have been at our kind of shop, you know, or like we would have set up in some alleyway and played kind of like anywhere and everywhere we can gather.
How is it for you as a creator, kind of seeing your music provoke such different reactions in people?
Yeah, it's crazy. I mean, it's like it's profound, and I'm like, I feel so lucky to have, you know, the tunes I make resonate with people to the extent where they're like jumping around and smashing bottles of Buckfast. Like, like I'm all for that. No, yeah, I love it, and it's always a trip observing how different people react to it, especially different cultures. Like we've played those tunes in Paris, and I've had quite a bit of time to play them in Italy too, and it's really cool just to see what people pick up on and how they react, and it's always different. It's cool, and I'm just like, I'm lucky to observe it, yeah, and be part of it. Yeah.